Hello and welcome to another episode of Cloud9 Analytics, the highest quality analysis, the highest quality commentary with the highest quality product that I am not allowed to show on YouTube yet. They're gonna let me soon enough. This is Spot On Sports, where we're not just accurate, but spot on. I am here with my special guest. Let them know your name and where they can find you at.
Hey, my name is Andrea Richmond. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, a lot of different places, Twitch, whatever, on Bordy McBoard, BOREDY, MCBORED. There's a what's it called? The little underline, or I forget what it's called right now.
Underscore.
Yes, you can underscore in between on Twitter. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. Excited to join the Spot On Sports in the Cloud9 Analytics community. I'm hyped.
This is the most laid back podcast in the sports world. Speaking of laid back, speaking of the sports world, we need to talk about this Bishop Sycamore High School story.
Flawless.
Do you have the details? Have you heard some of the crazy things that have came out about this school?
I have heard the crazy details. It started off pretty simple, okay, it's just a high school game, just play against each other. And every single step of information we learn, it just gets crazier and crazier. And they're a real school. They're not. Oh, but there's not real players and they're all 30. What? I don't know what's happening. It's crazy.
Well, this is one thing that I know for sure. They are a real sports program. They aren't a real school. Their school goes somewhere. It goes to like a hotel room or like a vacant lot of some sort. It's not a real school, but it is a real sports program. And that's the weirdest part to me, is that they actually were able to, they've been doing this scam for years.
Yes.
That's the part that's wild. They've been playing teams, they've been having games, and they've actually been on schedules. And that's the part that's the most unrealistic about it. Like, how did they not realize they were playing 30-year-olds? How did they not realize that, I imagine the buses were different. I imagine the sideline was, none of it was the same. And it seems as though like people are kind of sweeping it under the rug, but this is really dangerous for kids. I feel as though if Bishop Sycamore was winning games, this would be more of an issue.
Right. This is dangerous for kids. It's dangerous for the grown men. Okay,
yes.
Because they're over here, I don't know what they're doing in their personal life, working at AutoZone or working at T-Mobile down the street, but clearly they were not equipped to handle going against some of the top talent in high school because a lot of them were dropping like flies throughout the game. I mean,
very injury prone. It was really scary to watch.
Yes, and you see, they don't really even have real trainers, by the way. They're using people, IMG trainers had to come and help them in the middle of the game.
They had no clue what to do with that particular injury.
They had 3 people. They had somebody's wife or something. I don't know, but they had just random people. And the coach, who, if you've known, is a scammer. You've already touched on this.
And a convicted criminal.
And a convicted criminal, had a warrant out on his arrest. But this has got to be really, it's so impressive actually how deep this scam goes, because you've had this for 3 years. You've had people believe you. You've put people on schedules.
Yes.
And not only against bum teams, community places around, these are actually high level programs.
Yes.
You got on ESPN, which is crazy.
Honestly, I feel as though if they wouldn't have tried to go as far as getting on ESPN and things like that, but the reason that they got caught, I guess IMB is one of the best schools in the country. And they're in a situation where they have trouble finding games. People don't want to play them. So Bishop Sycamore, of course, they're going to play whoever because they have no choice. And they're just excited to be there. And they're just living out a dream that they never got to live out when they were that age. So they're just doing whatever they can. And IMD is so popular that people were wondering. They got on ESPN, and them getting on ESPN was the nail in the coffin. They probably should have kind of left it at just, playing high school teams and loving this and loving that, because when you overstay and when you overstep, people start to realize it. And I feel like that's exactly what happened with them. They just kind of extremely overstepped. And they're stuck now.
Like, you can only get away with so much. There's an art to lying, all right? Maybe, like, a couple white lies over here and there. Nobody's gonna look. But when you have your entire history, you're not letting people go to schools. In fact, I read an article a little while ago. This is by Complex Sports. They interviewed somebody from Bishop Sycamore who went to Bishop Sycamore, and he was talking about how, like, you talked about it earlier, had this random facility in the middle of nowhere that was a football facility. If they added a school, brought tutors in, that would keep the lie going a little bit longer. The kid said no, they absolutely didn't have that. Like, there was a kid there who was like trying for months, like, okay, mom, they're gonna start teaching us like in September, okay, in October, okay, it's December, now it's March, we're not doing anything, I don't know what's happening. So if you had done that, that's a step, right? If you would have, had practices, they didn't have practices. That's a step in order to get some legitimacy. They didn't have this. It's crazy if you read the stories, and you read the stories about the people affected too. The people.
There's some kids that are going to have to repeat grades.
Yes.
And that's what's horrifying. There's some kids that are going to have to go back to the 11th grade, go back to the 10th grade, because they missed an entire year of school, thinking that they were going to get educated as well as a chance to live their dream in whatever pro sport. And now that is impossible for them. The quarterback had scholarships. The starting quarterback had scholarships.
And they got people from, these weren't like, of course there are some grown people who would drop out of JUCO, but there are also some kids who were like going to these top athletic facilities and camps, and they recruited it from there, saying this is a brand new school, you have national attention, etc. And really, like, of course we talk about the hilarity of it. It's a kind of a funny story that it's been there so long, but there's another underbelly to where it's actually really like messed up, the amount of opportunities these kids have been stripped away from them, the amount of time they wasted, the injuries that they were susceptible to. This ruins their possibility of getting a career.
Because am I going to draft a kid from Bishop Sycamore and will recruit and bring them to my college? Probably not.
They haven't even practiced for real in these last year, so.
And they have not won a game.
Yeah.
So what can you tell me that's going to make me think that you're ready to be on my Division I, Division II college campus and succeed? That's the part that's horrifying. Is like, okay, these kids have lost so much. Okay, if the coach gets prosecuted, he's already pocketed so much money from playing these teams and from merchandise and from sales from games and things like that. So he's fine. Some of the trainers, they're fine. They didn't got paid, but these kids have not. And that's the worst feeling in the world. And that's a segue for me, because the worst feeling in the world, there's only probably one or two people feeling worse than those high school kids. And both of them we're going to talk about today, actually. But one of them just recently got cut from the New England Patriots. His name is Cam Newton. The issues here is, will Cam Newton be able to find another job? And if so, do you think he'll be able to succeed?
It throws me back to like, okay, there's a difference between whether he should and whether he would, right? Should Cam Newton be a starter in the NFL? I believe he can. I believe he should be, right? He has the ability to. We saw in the second preseason game, he had the zip in his ball, sort of how he looked in the beginning of last year before he had COVID, and then he had a massive drop off. Mind you, there are lots of other. Yes, COVID did him bad. Mind you, there are other players in professional sports that talked about how bad COVID was. Jason Tatum, who we know as potential
Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson actually kind of gained superpowers after that because he did better. But
he mentioned how it affected him a lot.
Yes,
going through COVID.
he had cramps, and that's what caused the whole Browns kerfuffle, where people said that he pooped, but he actually had cramps.
He had real bad cramps. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jason Tatum talked about being winded constantly. People talk about having mental fog to where you can't process things. And if you're a quarterback and you're trying to make these split second decisions, you can't necessarily do that while you have brain fog on top of it.
Exactly.
So should he be? Yeah, yes, like he should be.
There aren't 32 quarterbacks better than Cam. No.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tyrod Taylor is not, you know, like
Teddy Bridgewater,
you know, Sam Darnold, like no, you know. So I don't know what we're doing. Andy Dalton, you know, you already know Justin Fields should be starting there.
Thank you. So it's stuff like that where, and honestly, I think that's what's keeping him from getting a job.
Yeah.
It sounds weird, but okay, if you are Indianapolis or you are a Dallas and you know your quarterback situation is okay, but can change in a hair when it comes to injuries. Whereas with the backup, okay, the backup comes in for a game or two, doesn't matter how he plays, they get the job back. If Cam Newton takes that job and plays well, it's going to be questions about should Cam Newton keep that job. Cam Newton is not a backup, and that's the thing that's an issue. It is so hard for him to play the backup role because people will always clamor and feel as though Cam Newton can be better for your team. And that's rough on anybody who's trying to keep a job, a starting job, and feel like they have security, if that makes sense.
Oh no, it's the NFL. So all of these coaches, you know, they are plain as white bread, crusty as heck. They just don't want to do anything that notches up the needle, causes any distractions, does anything that might have somebody with a fun personality, because, you know, the fans will draw to that, the players will draw to that. It will cause a little bit of controversy. And then he also has the question as to, does Cam really want to do that? You know, Cam talked about it a little bit when he was in the interview series with like Chad Ochocinco. I forgot the name of that. But like he talked about how his ego isn't allowing him to like say, like, you know, step back and be somebody who's a backup. Carmelo Anthony, I'm a Knicks fan. Like he went through that as well, where he had to come to the concession where it's like, you know, maybe I need to ride the bench for a little while. You know, Cam is still young, 32, but because of the injuries that he's had and because the way the NFL works is what have you done for me lately? And because he hasn't done as much lately, even though it's due to unmitigated circumstances outside of his control, at the end of the day, you know, they're not going to want somebody who steps out there. He's probably not going to want to be behind somebody until he gets used to that. And it's going to be some growing pains. Now, should he? Yes. But will he? That's the question.
On a scale of 1 to 10 right now, 10 being get a job in the next week, 1 being he not playing at all this season. What do you feel like is the scale for Cam Newton getting a job in the NFL?
I want to say 8, but it's
that's
the
a
NFL.
Good number.
So it could be 4. Like,
wow,
you know,
it's a big spectrum. It's a big spectrum.
It's a huge spectrum. Yeah, it's a huge spectrum.
I understand. But that's just a rough feeling to think that Cam Newton, the Cam Newton, is between an 8 and a 4.
And he should be a lot higher. There are a lot of less capable quarterbacks who have had time and time again. Did you know that not Case Keenum, Colt McCoy is still in the league as a backup? Like,
but Colt McCoy is getting jobs as a backup.
Yep.
Whereas Cam Newton, it's going to be difficult for somebody to be like, yes, Cam, you are sitting here and you're just an insurance policy. People will clamor for Cam Newton. People will ask about Cam Newton, and people will think Cam Newton can be the answer. Now, with that last point, I need to know. I need your answer.
Okay.
Do you think the Lakers found their answer at point guard, at third option, at third musketeer, at final addition to the trio that will get LeBron his final ring? How do you feel about Russell Westbrook's addition? And also, how do you feel about people saying that Russell Westbrook cannot win a championship with his style of basketball?
Wow. Okay. So the first question and the answer to the second question are two totally different questions. To my opinion,
Completely
I
different.
feel completely different because I feel like Russell Westbrook, when we talked about this initially, removing all the players that they did and just putting Russ there, like I understand why there was cause of concern for shooting issues because LeBron James has thrived the most when he had a whole bunch of shooters around him, which is part of the reason why he won the last championship that he did with the Lakers, why he won in
Yes.
Miami, why he won with the Cavs. Shooting
Yes.
works around LeBron James because, you know, LeBron isn't somebody you depend on a shot. You depend on his scoring, his facilitating, etc.
Yes. His IQ.
Yes, his IQ, he controls the game, but Russ also does control the game too. So, you know, that's a little bit of a clash. You know, you've had players who both control the game with Chris Paul and James Harden, yet have successes as well. So it's that's not the issue for me. It was about the shooting. And, you know, Blinken did a great job in making sure that there are a whole bunch of shooters around them so they
Wayne
could have.
Ellington,
Malik Monk was great with a great
Kendrick
signing.
Nunn. That was
Carmelo.
Mellow.
Mm-hmm.
Coddington is just such great pickups.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, super good pickups. So for me, the issue for them doing well, I think they'll do great in the regular season. But when you talk about that winning a game, we've seen how Russell Westbrook was in the past. And mind you, this was in the past when he was with Kevin Durant and how he would sometimes play hero ball. And when you play hero ball, when you have Kevin Durant on your team, a walking bucket, but you just pull up from three because it's hero time. I'm here to save the day. Oh, baby, that ain't your shot, honey. That's not your shot.
That's
okay?
not right, but it's the truth.
It's the truth. It's the truth. So I love what Russell brings. I feel like a lot of people are super down on him or talking about, you know, the Buddy Hield thing or whatever. I feel like he's a valuable piece to a championship team. It's all about his mentality and giving up the control. I feel like he's matured a lot. He's learned to defer some, but will he do that in the clutch moments when it's winning time?
This is gonna sound weird, and people may think I'm wrong on this, but think about his career in the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
This may be the first time Russell Westbrook plays with a player that he absolutely knows for 100,000% fact he's Kevin not Durant? Better than. When he was playing with Kevin Durant, they were both young. He may have felt as though he could lead the team and be the number one better than Kevin at that time.
I know he did.
It's a situation where it's like, okay, we made hindsight, of course, is 2020. We see that Kevin Durant is obviously a better player than Russell Westbrook. But at that time, do you believe that he thought he was that much of a better player, if not a better player at all, than Russell Westbrook? No, he didn't think that. When he was with Paul George, it was Russ number one, Paul George number two. When he was with James Harden, it was 1A, 1B. It was never okay, people may have thought James Harden was better, but not enough for him to actually lead the team and be like, people thought it was still a lot of James Harden and Russell Westbrook team.
Right.
They didn't just put it directly on, okay, this is Harden's team and things like that. Because Harden didn't about that. And with Bradley Beal, Westbrook probably thinks he's a better player than Bradley Beal and a better leader than Bradley Beal. So he now is playing with two people he can guarantee he's not going to be better than. And that's Anthony Davis and that's and that's LeBron James with the state that Russell Westbrook is in his career. Had this been 5 years ago, he may not have thought that Anthony Davis was better than him. But he thinks that now because of the age, the maturity, and things like that. So we might be able to see a different Russell Westbrook this time because of the fact he's going to have to take a backseat because he knows he's not the best player on his team.
I'm not unconvinced that he feels like he's lesser than Anthony Davis because Russ is a prideful. This actually the episode of this should be Ego, the episode, because we all talked about ego kind of manifesting and controlling, you know, the tides.
All three of these topics, to be honest, this is the straight ego episode.
The straight ego, and honestly, it's up to Russ determine that, to defer to that. And when you talk about like, you talk about complimenting players, I feel like you need to have like a really good like glue guy, somebody who can really compliment everyone in order to really win championships. And you have that player with LeBron James, but hopefully outside of your star, you look for somebody else that's a compliment. I don't know. We'd have to see how these Lakers play to see how and who that person is. Hopefully, maybe honestly, Rondo can, and he's had his issues up and down with things, but he's actually been.
It just depends on how many actual minutes he's gonna play if he stays healthy. This entire team is gonna be an injury mess.
Yes.
Depending on how many minutes they play, because these are a lot of old players and they've been a lot of miles on these bodies. Yes. So we're gonna figure it out. Okay. Mm-hmm. Do you think the Lakers win the West? And if not, who beats them?
Wow. Okay. That's a great question. I'm going to have to,
because it's the West now.
It is the West, and there's a lot of good teams. I really liked what the Nuggets were doing, but they lost some players, and also too, like, they're the Nuggets, so they've been, and Jamal Murray's not going to be 100% with ACL. The Clippers are also, the Clippers, so they have their own issues as well.
Kawhi Leonard's not playing this year, probably.
And he's not playing this year. You're right. They're not playing this year. So that's off the table. They probably are going to win the West. But are they going to beat it against the Nets? They're also a team that's very injured. And, you also have the 76ers. What are they going to do with their trade situation? Because they have Ben Simmons there. I feel like the West isn't their biggest issues, which is ironic, right? We always talk about how loaded the West is. Now it's the East that has some top contenders that might be an issue to their successes. So I feel like it's just going to be, can Russ calm down to lead you to victory? Because if he does, if he facilitates well, if he gets better, he's been working on his three-pointer, but of course all summer we always see all these players are getting better at their three.
I don't want to hear nothing about nobody's three-pointer. Ben Simmons has been shooting threes, and I don't care.
Andre Drummond too. It's like, oh boy, sit down.
I don't care.
You are lying. Care. Stop lying.
Jack can shoot threes at home at his house. I don't care.
I saw Steven Adams do it, so that's not impressing me. Okay, because I know that boy's not Dwight Howard. No.
In a game, the only time it matters. Mm-hmm. But if you was to give your NBA finals way too early predictions, who's going to be in the final?
Way too early. These rosters again, probably. It's cliche. We're going to say Lakers, Nets, but I'm looking at the 76ers hard, and I'm looking at the Nuggets like, I don't really care.
Okay, I completely understand that. I am so glad you came on the show today. You might have to be a permanent guest on this show. You might just have to co-host this with me. This has been Cloud9 Analytics. I'm your host, Young Guy Holy One. I am here with Andrea Richmond, and we are going to head out. This has been the highest quality commentary with the highest quality analysis and the highest quality product that we only get to use off camera, unfortunately. And also, if you did not know already, we are powered by Spot On Sports, where we're not just accurate, but spot on. I love you guys.